So these are a new arrow that we've just brought out in the last couple of days called the E1 Venom. So these were designed as a competitor to some of your $10, $12 arrows in the market now for your hunting compound bows. So anything up to that kind of 50 to 70 pound range. So these come in at a 350 spine, which is very similar to your Carbon Express Predator 2s, Eastern Power Flights, Gold Tip Hunters, all that kind of arrow range. So these are going to retail for $11 each, which is pre-made, pull it out of the box, grab a point, screw it in and start shooting. The main difference we found with these arrows versus some of the competitors on the market is one, the price. So usually your Predator, Carbon Express Predator 2s are $12 and up. Your Gold Tip Hunters are close to or in excess of that. And your Power Flights can be as much as $13, $14. So we wanted to stay towards the bottom end of that. Second thing we did is we fletched these, well, these come pre-fletched, but the factory has fletched them with blazer vanes. So these aren't just like no-name kind of blazer copy vanes. These are legit boating blazer vanes that we put on the back. Come with a knock installed and also a half cert or an out cert or whatever you want to call it. But basically, this is a really, really cool feature of the arrow. So what this does, if you can kind of see it here, is rather than the insert being internal to the arrow, this is external. So normally this is like an aftermarket thing that you'll see on your high-end micro diameter shafts, but these come standard with our Venoms. So this is going to give you a lot more protection when you're shooting. If you hit something hard or, you know, just as far as penetration goes, it's going to protect the arrow a lot better, and it's going to give you more weight towards the front of the arrow too, which is a really, really cool feature for an $11 arrow. That's something that I guess was one of the main reasons of why we brought this arrow to the market. You'll find, I guess the main difference with a Venom compared to cheaper arrows, like some of the ones on eBay, is if you actually take one of these arrows and lay it next to one of your bulk buy $4 or $5 arrows you can get online, or if you read the description closely, you'll see they mention mixing carbon a lot. Now mixing carbon is where they take carbon and fiberglass, and you'll see it kind of has this darker glossy black sheen to it. And that's where you've got mostly fiberglass with a little bit of carbon thrown in. And if you take that arrow and flex it, you'll feel that it's really, really different to something like this, where it is an actual carbon arrow. So that's your main benefit when you're going from those cheap eBay ones to something that's actually carbon. These are meant to be a 6th straightness, but when we've run them through the jig, we found they are actually quite a bit better. So the tolerances have been quite good on these. They come at 31.5 inches uncut. And obviously you want to cut them, you can just unglue your insert and cut them down from there. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take these arrows and a couple of competitors' arrows that are in the same bracket. We're going to put them on a arrow straightening jig, and we're going to see what kind of straightness that we can get out of our Venom arrows. So now we have a look at the straightness tolerance of a Venom. So these are rated to 6/1000 of an inch. And if we just rotate one through, again, this is just one I've pulled out of the box. That's pretty good. Take out another arrow. Still pretty good, still much better than 6/1000 of an inch as advertised. And we'll try this last one here. Still really, really good. Now you could make that even better if you took the components out and squared it all up. Obviously, every single arrow you get out of the packet is not going to be the same. There probably are some closer to 6 thou, or maybe even some above 6 thou, which is just what happens with cheaper arrows and lighter tolerances. But for just 3 I've pulled out of the box, that's pretty good for a $11 arrow. So I'm shooting 50 meters. There is a bit of wind about, so I expect that the Venoms are going to drift further to the right, given that's the way the wind is going, and they're probably at least double the size of my Pro Tours. So just going to shoot a group of 50. I'll try and alternate arrows, so it takes out a bit of placebo, and we will see where they end up on the target. So the knock grooves on the Venoms are quite a bit smaller than my Pro Tours. So I'm shooting a large groove knock on my X10s, which is what that string is set up for. So the small groove on the Venoms is making them jump off the rest a little bit. So I expect the groove to be a little bit bigger just because of that. But that's pretty standard with most hunting arrows. They normally come with a smaller knock groove size. Blowing quite a bit to the right. Venom so far with my Pro Tours, which is a bit weird given there's probably 60 grains difference between them. So being a hunting arrow, it's a lot heavier. Similar group sizes so far. There was that jump off the rest I was talking about with the smaller knock groove on the Venoms. But that's changeable. You can just put in a large groove knock depending on what serving thickness you're shooting. Blown around quite a bit now. Bit of a rush shot, that one. So now the Venoms are starting to group a little bit lower. We're getting Pro Tours are kind of right edge of the gold, good height. The Venom's probably low 8-7 line. So you're dropping probably about a good ring, 50 meters on a big face for every 20 grains or 25 grains you're adding to the arrow. Jumping off in the wind. Pro Tours, everything is a little bit right, which is probably just me not setting my windage properly before I started, but group size is the main thing that we're looking for in this test. My first arrow to go left. I think that's the first one I've shot where there's been no wind down there. So left to right, so probably going to skew the results a little bit, but it's a good comparison of, I guess, arrow diameter as well, and how obviously a cheap arrow is a little bit fatter, how that's going to affect them down the range too. Because 50 meters probably your longest hunting shot, I'd say, most at 15-20 meters. So this will give you a good comparison of what you're paying for with your small diameter shafts. Last one of each arrow. Pro Tours are considerably shorter as well. Because the thing you've got to remember as well with these, I've literally just pulled them straight out of the box at the shop and screwed the points in. That's all I've done. Whereas my Pro Tours have been, you know, it takes a good two and a bit hours to build a set of arrows, plus weight matching, so let's say 3 hours. So my Pro Tours have been cut to match my draw length. I've played around with point weight, fletch length, I've squared all the ends. I fletch them myself to make sure they're good. These are just your factory fletchings, so even price-wise, there should be a significant difference performance-wise with the Pro Tours, just given the time I've put into them and the fact they are set up, I guess, optimally for this. Whereas this is a 350 spine hunting arrow for your 70-pound bow. It's not cut down, it's just pulled out of the box. So this will be a fair test of what you'd pull out of the box at a shop as well. Alright, let's go down and have a look and see how they gripped. It's now down at the target, and what you'll notice straight away is drift-wise, just given the 6 arrows I've shot, now this obviously is fairly subjective given all the different factors that have come in, with wind, shooting 12 arrows, alternating, all that kind of stuff. So obviously to get something that's really statistically significant, you'd stand here for hours, use a shooting machine, all that stuff. Just to give you a general overview. So remember, your X10 Pro Tours are going to be about a $60 arrow. So these don't have the tungsten points in them, these are just stainless. But by the time you add all your components and build them, let alone the cost of if you're paying a shop to build them, or the cost of buying the tools for yourself, like an arrow saw and stuff like that, plus the time you put into them, they're probably getting closer to 70. These arrows are $11, plus your points, which make them 12. So these are quite an economical arrow. And we can see over 50 meters, there's not a massive difference drift-wise. You've got to kind of consider that these are going to be a bit heavier as well. So in theory, they might hold their position a little bit better, which could cancel out the diameter difference between them. But we're not seeing a whole lot of difference as far as drift goes between the two groups. If we measure our groups, and let's just take out one of both. So these were both shots that went off a bit faster or slower than the others. So we take out one outlier and just use the 5. So with my Venoms, it's about a 7 centimeter vertical group. And let's say 4.5 horizontal, so 7 vertically, 4.5 horizontal. With my Pro Tours, got just over an 8 centimeter vertical group. And close to a 9 or 10 centimeter horizontal group. So the Venoms have actually outperformed the Pro Tours in these 6 arrows, which again, we're only talking 6 arrows here. But my point is, when you're looking at an $11 hunting arrow versus $60 target arrow, these come out pretty good. And as you've seen in our tests we've done earlier, when we compare these against some of the existing $10, $12, $15 hunting arrows on the market at the moment, these are a really, really good option. So that's the Venom E1 arrows. We're looking at creating a Venom SD as well in the future, which will be a small diameter version, which should drift even less than these have now. But as you can see, as a hunting arrow or entry-level target arrow, they perform really, really well. The groups are really good. I mean, they've outcompeted my Pro Tours at this end, and you could buy 6-7 dozen of these for the price of what it would cost you to buy a dozen Pro Tours. Hope that's cleared some stuff up for you guys. These arrows are available at elizararchery.com.